Welcome in, everyone, to what has become the Chic team, the Chic program in the ACC. I'm seeing the predictions in the early top 25 selections all over the place. Florida State is getting all sorts of love out there. We discussed it with James last week. We will discuss it a little bit more this week. And, of course, we take your comments and questions there in the live chat. We got Jason Parker on the line, NBC6. And, of course, big game, James Coleman, Florida State fullback 2002 through 05, and his many platforms, which we will get to because we want to do our best in having James serve up where you can find him and what he's got going on, including a continued NFL playoff run from the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yes, I had to go buy overcoats and gloves. And
you do. I saw you booked your flight to KC.
Some snow. Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with the flight to KC, but the 75% chance of snow, I don't like snow. That's why I haven't moved from Florida. But, it's going to be interesting, though. It'll be fun game.
James, on behalf of those of us in the Miami media who don't have to go to KC, you have fun with that. You let us know how that is. All right, bud? Good.
I'll definitely let you know. There's a good steakhouse. There's some good steakhouses there, so I plan on trying to enjoy myself while I'm up there. Hopefully see a good football game.
I do actually also, before we get into talking about Florida State football, we're going to talk a lot this week. I do apologize to somebody who's not here, Logan Robinson for game day. I want to apologize to Logan Robinson for any time I've insinuated that he is country, he is a redneck and whatnot. Watch Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football's ACC 3-hour spectacular on Monday that I was on. Mark set me up with two gentlemen who actually know the names of Pigskin Pete and Slim Shady Canes. James, I swear to God, I think these two men stormed the Capitol on January 6th because these were two of the biggest. I don't know what to describe. One's a Miami guy, one's a Clemson guy, but these two gentlemen, oh my God. I don't know who you were with later on the show, James, but these were two special gentlemen that Mark set me up with here.
Well, Jason, what was said that would cause you to say, but besides their fan base, what was said by those two? Because I don't recall anything that was that heated or crazy or out there.
Well, we'll get into what the first of all, the man's a grown ass man who uses the name Slim Shady. I think we can talk about him in a moment. But his comment about Florida State being overrated and whatnot, we'll get into why he needs to calm down that one. But we'll talk. Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk about their comments about you said Florida Chic program and whatnot. We can talk about it later because both of them seem to not welcome Florida State back into the ACC championship contention party, if you will. And I understand where Pigskin Pete was coming from on the Clemson side, but we'll get to a moment why Slim Shady Kane has no idea what he was talking about. Just give me a moment. I brought numbers to the party. So snacks, I bring numbers.
Well, I made the statement that I did at the top of this show in all sincerity. That was not a slight in any such way. I see a team that by the end of the season was probably the best team in the conference. Probably would have loved to have seen them get back on a football field with Clemson. Who knows what would have happened, but they were right there. They were definitely the second best team in the conference by the end of the season. And now with all this talent coming back and so many guys opting to come back, including the guy that's probably the best quarterback in the league, there is a reason. It's been backed up now for 13 games and now leading into this season.
Mark, you're an American icon. You are the college football icon that we all come for. You're fine. You also don't use a stupid name like Pigskin Pete or Slim Shady Kane. So we'll get to them in a moment. Let's focus on this.
That was the beauty of that show as well, to get you and James and others, mixed together with other personalities. We'll say that.
Personality. That's a solid word to describe those two.
So the Miami take that set you off was what?
Well, here let's go in forth. And I think good point when you talk about Florida State being Chic program. And for those who didn't watch, go back and watch. It was a great 3-hour program that Mark ran on Monday. But the question that was brought up was Florida State Chic program. And I do agree with you that I think From a Florida State perspective, and I said this on Monday, my concern would be if you're Florida State right now, you're coming off a 10-win season since 2016. My concern is you've gone up, we've hit that top right there at 10 wins, we're back to double-digit win season. The potential to fall is there. I think Florida State will fall back. No, I don't. But I think you do always have to have that concern, especially when you see what the 2023 season has in store for us. From what Pigskin Pete, a Clemson guy, good guy, and he made a point very clear. I think Clemson right now is still the class ACC. I think Clemson is the team right now. It's Clemson, and then we're the second best team right now in the ACC. I think this is the closest that Florida State will have to compete with Clemson since, I say, 2014, 2015, since competitive rivalry between the teams. So I think that's the thing. I think Clemson does deserve the respect as the ACC champion, and Florida State deserves to be the second best team, like you said at this point. What a man named Slim Shady Kane brought to the party was saying how he thought that Florida State, that he doesn't understand why Florida State was getting all this credit. Apparently he was too that he missed that 42-point belt whipping we put on Miami back in November. But it's funny how, because I hear all these time from Miami people talking about how Florida State, how we shouldn't be cocky because we're finally back. So I just wanted to point out a few numbers real quick. If you'll indulge for one moment, Mark. I don't know if you want to take me full screen for these numbers real quick. But in the last 21 seasons, since Miami last won a national title, they last won a national title, thank you very much, in the 2001 season. So there's been 21 seasons. Let's take a look at the numbers real quick. Florida State has 4 losing seasons over the last 21 seasons, from 2018 to 2021. Miami has 4 losing seasons. You know what? We'll also bring the Florida Gators into this. I don't want Miami to think we're picking on them. The Florida Gators also have 4 losing seasons over that span. When it comes to 10-win seasons over the last 21 seasons, excuse me, Florida State has 8. Florida has 7. Miami has 3. Oof, that's not good. When it comes to bowl record, Florida State has an 11-7. Florida has a 10-9 record. Miami's record bowls over the last seasons, 4-12. Oof, that's not good at all. When it comes to conference titles over the last 21 seasons, Florida has 2 in the SEC. We have 6 in the ACC. Miami has 2 from the Big East, from the 02 and 03 season. Hasn't won anything since the ACC, since they joined. And when it comes to national titles, Florida has 2. We have 1, and Miami has none. So, Miami fans, you can't talk crap to us at all. You're not relevant. We had 4 bad seasons. We're still more relevant than you.
We'll certainly introduce Logan Robinson here, of course, from Noel Game Day. Appreciate you being here, Logan. Good to see you.
Good evening. Good to see you guys too. Good to see you. Your
NFL season has been cut short.
Sorry, Logan.
It has. Just got back a few hours ago from Tampa. Sad times. Good thing I'm not a fan of them, but definitely does stink when you can't keep on driving out some coverage of them. But it'll be a busy offseason for sure. But just finished up signing down there to be moving down there in 2 months. So it's been a busy last couple of days. But glad to be back in Tally and glad more to be here on with you guys.
Logan, point out real quick that you cover the Buccaneers, obviously, for game day. Very successful in doing that. I covered the Miami Dolphins on their playoff run. Point out that of all 3 teams in the state of Florida, the only team standing is the Jaguars.
It's hilarious. That's what I was just about to bring up to James there, that I don't think, definitely not before the season, that this would be the situation where James is continuing NFL coverage of a game happening this upcoming weekend and the Bucs fall short and can't beat the Dallas Cowboys, which I think are still not the greatest. They have their ups and downs, but it's a weird year. But I'm all for it. It's been a fun NFL season.
I'll make my quick take on the bragging rights issue between Florida State and Miami, because I am the one guy here that's unbiased. If we're going from an all-time perspective, I think we could sit here and argue. If we had Miami people on here, we could argue for 10 hours. And we couldn't come to a conclusion, because there are points on the Florida State side. There are points on the Miami side. But if we're going to condense this down to ACC play, since Florida State joined the ACC, since Miami joined the ACC, there's no comparison between the accomplishments of the two programs. It's not even close. Florida State has owned the ACC since they've joined. Clemson has certainly taken that over in the last 6 or 7 years. But overall, from a historical standpoint, ever since Florida State joined this conference, they have been the dominant program and have by far the most accomplishments, both on an ACC scale and a national scale, over everyone. And Miami has been a major, major disappointment since joining, to be kind. I'll put it in those terms, disappointment since joining the ACC. They haven't won the championship yet. If you would have told anybody that covers college football in 2004, Miami's joining the ACC, how many championships will they have 19 years from now? 0. That's just an utter and epic failure. And then over the last, since Jimbo Fisher left, we could go back and forth on who's been more about, not who's been better, who's been worse. But as it stands right this second, Florida State's got 2 consecutive wins. The last one was a complete annihilation, and they're obviously coming off a 10-win season, not a 5-win season, and things are looking up in Tallahassee. So that's where we stand.
Mark, I'm sorry. Could you call me a failure again? I got the window open, so I want people in South Florida to call Miami a failure. They need to hear it louder. Can you say it louder for people in the back?
Well, I also use the adjectives utter and epic failure.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We're hitting this, Logan, because we had quite the conversation during our ACC show on Monday night. We had Jason, we had James. James was great. Jason was phenomenal. I enjoyed it. But we had our Clemson contingent. We had our Miami guys on there.
Logan,
I missed out on the.
They were special guys. Like, just picture stereotypical Clemson and Miami people. That's who I'm bargaining with. That's all.
Be nice. You got to be nice now. You got to be nice. I'm sure.
Now we don't want to forget James is here. James keeps popping in. James, you on the road?
Yeah, I was on the road. I had, nobody calls my phone until I'm doing something. So like, I just got a phone call, so I had to. I forgot to put my phone on Do Not Disturb. Logan, is that a 4th and 14 shirt that you're wearing?
That is the. They sent me one. That was nice. For J-Trav, obviously. I like them.
I wore mine.
Not bad and nice and fit.
I think it was. Logan, I think I was wearing mine on the show we had, Mark. I think, it's just. We were talking about Miami, so I just thought it was interesting.
I was just saying, what game was that, Logan? Could you remind the viewers what league that was, Logan?
Miami viewers? Oh yeah. You don't want to remind them, do you?
I think we should remind them.
Yeah, just I think that's ingrained in their brains already, Jason. But yeah, that kind of sealed off the win there by Andrew Parchment, which I don't think we'll really remember that name in 2 years. I'll be honest with you, but Andrew Parchment sealed that. I kind of just took a second in my brain to remember who caught that, but yeah, Andrew Parchment. Yeah, I think
one of the
fans will remember that name.
One of the things, Mark, that was weird about that show, and then just even though Jason did such a great job giving us the analytics and the numbers within modern history. There are different types of history that you do want to learn. You do, like, world history is important. But sometimes for you to have context, but sometimes you can't get bogged down about what's actually happening in this day and age. And what was amazing is, and what I will say is kind of admirable about the guys who I was a part of with Miami, was how they could take things that we all see in real time and try to make us believe that this was fake news. Like, the one thing, like, I don't remember his name, but he did say that, everybody likes to say that Miami fans proclaim that we're back, when nobody in Miami says that. I said, I was confused. I said, you are telling me that? He was like, nobody from Miami says that Miami is back. And I named some notable people who cover Miami who keep saying this. And then even he had to, get choked up. But I'm amazed at how they can take current events and see it in a manner, like how you can be whooped 45-3 and then call a team overrated while parading that you have the second best head coach and that you have the best recruiting classes and you have all these different things, but you got beat 45-3, then what does that say about you? But it's just like I said, it's very interesting when I see the rivalry aside, it's very interesting because they should be better, and it should not be settling for recruiting classes. It shouldn't be this bad, but they are. And the only thing that they can grasp on is it's like my 4-year-old. When I beat him, like if we're having a discussion or we're playing a game, I could be beating him for real, and then he's going to always do something and say I win. That's what it's like sometimes arguing with Kane, with some Kane fans, not all of them. I kind of miss. I kind of it made me Mark. It made me long for Cam. I was like, where is Cam Underwood when I need him, man? I would much rather talk to Cam than these two guys right here.
It's like James is down here with me. He's what I go through on a daily basis. But I do, before we move on, I want to talk to both.
It's not that. So I was just going to ask. It's not that Miami guy that does like live streams and stuff, and he's rapping, right? It's not that one.
He goes by the name Shady Kane, and he makes your Southern accent sound like Old English.
Okay, so maybe there's just maybe there's double handfuls of some different kind of animals in Miami.
But I do want to touch base with both of you because I missed last week's show and Mark talked about it, but I want to touch base because now it was official today. Obviously, Florida State officially announcing the hire of Patrick Surtain Sr. coming in as the defensive back coach. Where spent last year with the Miami Dolphins staff, was a long-time head coach down here at American Heritage, right up the road from me here in Broward County, won several championships. I think it's an amazing hire for State, both the South Florida connections, his ability, and as a defensive back for the Dolphins, for the Kansas City Chiefs, and whatnot. But I want to touch base with both of you guys on this hire. It's nothing. No disrespect to Marcus Woodson heading out to Arkansas, but I think this is an improvement, a much better improvement both on coaching staff and from to get in to tap into that South Florida recruiting aspect. What are your guys' thoughts on this hire now that it is officially happened?
Go ahead, James.
I mean, I think it's an amazing hire. I mean, it's a home run. It is. No disrespect, whatever the intention. It's a marked improvement over what we had before because there's no knock on Marcus, but I mean, there were things that were notably kind of missing in the secondary, not just with him, but over the past couple of years. Guys having lack of communication, lack of ball skills. Like you'll see guys who are in the proper positions but just can't get it. And sometimes it's not from a coach not being able to effectively communicate or teach. It's not getting through. Sometimes some people have a better way of saying something and you actually latch on and hold on to it. And what better way than a guy who's actually lived, breathed, and did everything that you can imagine. We talk about guys who I would have loved to see come back in a Crow. We talk about guys like DeMarcus Van Dyke, who I wouldn't have mind Mike Norvell hiring as well. You look at these guys, and what you're doing is you're getting a better version of those two with more experience. So he has the on-field experience in the NFL, being an assistant DB coach in the NFL. He's a 13-year vet. He's a former All-Pro. He's a former conference defensive player of the year in his conference. He's a guy who's done he's a guy he's not just, and excuse me. And the other part of it is one of the things is he hasn't coached in college, but he's coached elite level high school prospects when he was down at American Heritage. Look at who's actually going into the NFL and these big name college guys. He was that guy who was the head coach for them. So bringing him in definitely gives the guy something to relate to. And I think him being a professional coach, gives him the ability to be able to adapt. Because I think that's going to be the key to Mike Norvell and company in 2023 and in 2024 really excelling. Because a lot of the staff is this continuity in the staff and who's coming in, what pieces are coming in that can mold and fit in better than others. Sometimes when you go outside of your box, like you got to hope that this person comes in and vibes and meshes well. But one thing about pros and what I tell people when I played and what I really remembered was that I don't like we didn't really care about how good a person the person was. Any of those, we cared about if that guy could do their job, and I think that kind of helps with Pat right there.
Yeah, Jason, you should be ecstatic. I don't think I got to talk to you about this hire, but this is what you've been wanting, something down south with a lot of ties. And I think this is a big one for you. I'm sure you were pretty happy about it. And so, James went down and noted on a lot of the accolades that he went and, performed at every level. But no, going to what he's going to be working with, I think, is what I'm going to keep a close eye on. Definitely at the cornerback position and what he can do to develop, because that was something that lacked there in that secondary, guys. And looking at Renardo Green, the kind of season he had, there's still a lot of work to be done. But there's the future is certainly bright there. You've got Fentrell Cypress coming in, which that was a gigantic get for Florida State in the transfer portal. And he already shows you what he has on film and what he can do in games and make plays. But imagine what Patrick Surtain can do with him for a season. Mike Norvell's done a good job of making hires. He hasn't had to move on from coaches. I'm not saying that he was planning on moving on from Marcus Woodson, but I would say that there was some things where it was a little bit, I would say, of the Chris Marv situation where he went on and got a raise, I would say, but he got a bigger type position and, parted ways. And I think it was a mutual type thing. But Florida State, there's a lot to work with developmental wise and the cornerback room. And you look at Azare Thomas, who's going to compete. I'm going to be watching that throughout the spring on some of these guys. Of course, some of the freshmen coming in. What do you do with Kevin Knowles? Does he stay in that nickel spot? Do they try him out a little bit at safety just because you're kind of thin there? A lot of things that, Patrick Surtain's going to be running into immediately and trying to figure out where guys fit the best. But I think there's a few that showed you during this last season which positions they need to be kept at. And, a few of those, Renardo Green, I still want to keep him at corner. I want to keep Azare Thomas at corner. I want to have, obviously, Fentrell Cypress over there at corner. I think Grady Vance is a very smart player. I think he really intelligent. He put himself in really good positions this year for takeaways. And Kevin Knowles, I will just see if they want to move him back a little bit, and we'll see, what they want to do with some of the freshmen. As we know, Akeem Dent will be coming back next season too. So a lot of good stuff for Patrick Surtain Sr. to be working with coming into his first year at Florida State. Definitely when you can bring in one of the top transfers in the country at the cornerback position with Cypress.
Yeah, I mean, from a personal aspect, somebody who grew up watching Patrick Surtain on the Miami Dolphins with guys like him, Sam Madison, Terrell Buckley, it's big to see him coming to Tallahassee. What I think, I talked about this before, I said this for nearly 4 years with MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. Florida State has to get back into recruiting South Florida. In the 2023 class alone, they sent guys from the Dade County, Broward County, West area. That's big in comparison to years past where we maybe have signed 1-2. So I like that we're starting to get in there. This guy has the connection. This is a guy who's going to get not just guys from schools like Heritage, but he's going to be able to go into areas like Fort Lauderdale, like Miami, and get some of these guys. This is a huge get from that aspect. That's the thing that I love the most about it. It's getting the big name guys from South Florida to maybe not so much automatically go to the University of Miami, but get them to come up to Tallahassee.
Yeah, recruiting was a lack there under Woodson. And you can go back to a few recruitments and, everybody has their opinions on what went down with the Travis Hunter situation. But, that was supposed to be a lockdown deal. And I understand what Deion's doing and what he's trying to do. And he's going to try to do the same over here at Colorado. But, just overall recruiting wise, it just wasn't stellar. And for Florida State to be lacking in that department, definitely when bringing in talent at the defensive backs position, that just can't be the way at Florida State. And if you're going to call yourself DBU, it can't be lackluster kind of talent coming in. I'm not saying that what they have in that room before wasn't nice talent, but there's definitely higher talent that Florida State can go in and grab. And they've been beaten by multiple schools in doing that. So hopefully with this name, I think you saw the attraction on social media from some of the recruits, along with also some current players. I saw Jarian Jones put a check mark out right after the news started breaking that he was going to be hired. So I think the in-house seemed like at least the team is pretty excited about having him come in. And, Miami almost made a run there to where he would have not been in Tallahassee sooner or later. But now that Miami's and their season is over, that means that he'll be in Tallahassee very soon if he's not already. So
I'm
some good
sorry
stuff
too,
there.
Jay. I'm sorry too, Jay. I was rooting against the Dolphins, like because
Oh.
like I need Pat to be, especially when talking to Slim, which is funny, because some people have like taken this. It was crazy. Like it's not Logan, it's not just what happened with Logan's chat, but it happened in another one where somebody literally copied exactly what I said verbatim, the way I talk, and fucking posted it. And I was like, guys, like just take it, paraphrase it. I don't even mind at this point. Like but like they called him Slim. They called him like you got to be from Jacksonville to even know that that's his nickname. But Jaheim Singletary, just I know that was a big piece and waiting to figure out how he was gonna what they were gonna do with him. They wanted to make sure that they had their coaches officially in place before those things happen. But I mean, just looking at what the recruits' reactions were, and then you got to compete. You got to what did Deion Sanders do for Travis Hunter? He basically came and said, "They're telling you you're going to be primetime too. Who better make you primetime too than primetime? Like basically, who better to develop you than me being one of the foremost best corners?" Now what you have is a guy, Patrick Surtain, who can literally go into living rooms and say something very similar. Like, again, let's just say he's going head to head with Marcus Woodson. He'd be like, you know what? No disrespect to Marcus Woodson, but have you ever Googled me? And it's just like, oh, okay, wow, okay, well, this is what you've done. This is what you've accomplished. This is who you've coached. All right, I can see my son being there and being okay. And that's recruiting is about winning the game is about Jimmys and Joes. X's and O's will get you in certain positions, but you got to have cats. And if you've got better cats than the other team in front of you, you're going to win a lot more of your games than lose them.
First of all, James, I was also rooting at the Dolphins because I didn't want to freeze my butt off in KC Saturday at 4:30 on NBC. That's fine. You have fun, KC. I wish you that one. Logan, the family's all here this week. This is the first time in 2023 that the family's all been together. You know what you got to do.
You got to hit the like button. You got to hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. That's all it is. I don't know what there's really is. I can't toy you into hitting the like button for something good to happen, but maybe something good happens in the transfer portal. I don't know. Maybe one of those Georgia safeties pops in there. I don't know. Maybe something good will come out of it. But yeah, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and good things will happen.
Because it's a new year, new Jason. I'm gonna say this to all our viewers: check out the Discord on No Game Day, and check out Discord on Patreon
on James
with Mark and James. If James has,
everybody's got a Discord.
Check out everyone's Discord. I'm done. I've done. I put up the fight for 2 years. I'm done with it, guys. Just check out the Discord. Let's do it. I'm done. You killed my Discord, guys.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. We have also dropped the links to Logan's YouTube channel, Noel Game Day, and also James with Sports Den, his YouTube channel link in the live chat. So it's easy. We make it easy for you. We just don't tell you, go over there. We drop the link right there. All you have to do is click on the link and you can go subscribe and check out all the content on those two channels. And of course, to back up Jason, now I gotta confirm this. Yes. James has a Discord. I don't know how to tell you to get there, so he can. James?
It's fifth quarter. Just type in FIFTH quarter on your Discord, or you go to fifthquarter.net. You can go see how to log into our Discord and pick. It's not just FSU is our biggest one, our biggest channel, but it's actually all of college football. So I'm lucky to be on a platform that you can go and talk trash to Miami fans. You get to pick your favorite colleges. I think we're still at $5 a month. I really don't know, but I just drop news and notes sometimes, and then my guy AMC is in there going heavy. I'm doing some different things, but I actually got a bounce, Mark. I thought I was going to be able to have more time, but I'm gonna try to make sure I become more regular on these Wednesdays. I'm trying to clear off my schedule so I can make sure I can do these things.
James, before you go, because you're a member of the Peacock family, you're getting a Peacock paycheck where they can see you this Saturday if you live in Jacksonville.
You can see me freezing my ass off in a nice overcoat, earmuffs, and some leather gloves outside of Arrowhead Stadium. I think we're doing a pre-show. I think it's going to be at 2:30 before the game, so it'll be an hour pre-show from at First Coast News here in Jacksonville, and then we'll be doing post-game as well.
Welcome to the Peacock
James, appreciate you being here. When are you flying out?
I fly out first 6:30 a.m. Friday morning. I land 11:30 Kansas City time. I will be going hanging out with one of my friends who had got a couple friends who live there. I'll be checking them out, checking my hotel, driving around. I plan on getting a steak. I plan on, getting some good libations. And shout out to Bow City Brigade. They're having, I forgot where it's at, but they're having a get together on Friday night. Then they're having a big tailgate in Kansas City for the Jags game. You can go check out Bow City Brigade on Twitter if you're a Jags fan and you're out in that area. You want to know where they're going to be at, because I can tell you where I'm going to be at. I'm probably going to be there with a bunch of Floridians trying to get warm and hoping I hope the press box food is good. I've never been to Arrowhead. I am a snob. I want to make sure I'm eating some good food, and because I know we have good food with the Jags, so it works out.
It's not bad, James. Sometimes they actually do it with a little barbecue. I don't know what they're going to do this time. It is actually not bad. I will give them credit.
This Kansas City barbecue is pretty damn good.
Yeah.
That's what they're known for. Definitely.
It's better than the Bucks press box. I'll say that much.
Well, I had sirloin on Monday night.
Thanks, James. Appreciate it, man. Have a good trip. Absolutely. I've got one of my best friends in the world flying up here on Sunday, and that's the one thing he's not real comfortable with, coming up from the Sunshine State to spend a few days with his buddy. Knows he's going to freeze his rear end off.
What are you talking about? It's 82 degrees down here in Miami. It's a cold 82 degrees, so we're good to go.
That's what I'm saying. He's leaving Florida to come visit me.
Well, an idiot. You don't go to Ohio in the middle of January. I'm sorry, you don't make.
Well, there are certain things going on that he's being a good friend about. So, but yeah, that's the trip you make in July. Absolutely.
Logan,
you leave 100 and get to 85.
That's fine. I want to ask Logan a question. I want to ask Mark a question on this one too. So I posed a question on Monday to Pigskin Pete, and obviously because I used proper English, he didn't understand what I was saying. When the ACC was releasing their schedule on Monday, January 30th, Logan, I contend that if the ACC had any intelligence, they would make Florida State and Clemson earlier in the season, because with both teams being arguably best in the conference, both teams likely to start next season ranked in the top 10, if the ACC wants any chance at all of having two teams possibly make the playoff, which is a stretch. Now, mind you, we have LSU on the schedule. We have Florida on the schedule. We have NC State. We have a decent schedule when it comes to strength of schedule. Clemson has Notre Dame. They have NC State. They have Miami as well. So they have a decent schedule as well. I think you have to play that game earlier in the season by the last week of September at the latest, so that the loser of that game has a chance to bounce back in the final 2 months of the season. What say you?
It's an interesting idea. I mean, but the biggest question is the ACC smart enough to do that? I mean, that's probably the biggest one there. I don't know. I think it would be interesting. If you look at it, Florida State and Clemson could play a potential 3 times. Definitely, there's a strong possibility it will be 2 with the new divisions. Those will be gone, and it's going to be your top 2 teams in the ACC championship. So there's a good chance that we'll see Florida State versus Clemson twice in 2023, and maybe a 3rd time if things get crazy with playoff stuff. But Florida State, I wouldn't mind it too much, but I am used to that October-ish Florida State versus Clemson kind of mid-October game schedule. I don't know if the ACC would make that move, if that's something of interest to them. If they would want to shake that up, I mean, now that the divisions are gone, I don't think you have to go back to your old ways of how you were scheduling some of these games out. But I also don't want that to affect Florida State and Miami and what they do there, because that needs to be later in the season. I don't want that to be rushed and early. So it really depends on the outlook there. But it's an interesting idea if ACC would want to do that, because I think they learned this last season that, the ACC had some potential with some teams and then fell off. And then you'd have a rise there in Louisville, would hang on for a little bit. And you have Drake May with North Carolina, and he's supposed to have a big season next year, coming out as a freshman like the way that he did. So there's a lot of different things that they're going to have to put together schedule-wise with a new realm of no divisions. But we'll see if they would like to do something like that where it's earlier in the season, because that is their biggest matchup of the year.
To me, the biggest four games that involve ACC teams this season are Florida State and Clemson. Florida State LSU, which is already scheduled for Sunday, September 3rd, week 1 of the season in Orlando. Clemson plays Notre Dame, which has already been scheduled for November 4th in Clemson. And then Clemson, Florida State, and Florida State, Miami. To me, those are the 4 games. So to me, it comes out where if the ACC was smart, you got Florida State and LSU to open the season. You've got Florida State and Clemson maybe at the last week of September. Have Florida State and Miami play in the middle of October, maybe, the third weekend of October, just to get a break. And then you got Notre Dame, Clemson to start November. That's the way it would play out. That way you've got a good game every couple weeks in the ACC at that point. You're not overloading. You're not killing the team. Give the loser of that Clemson-Florida State game a chance to survive. Because let's say we lose to Clemson for the 8th straight time. We still have Miami later in the season. You still have Florida at the end of the year. You still have your games that you can use to get that strength schedule back up. If Clemson loses to us, they'll still have NC State. They'll still have Notre Dame. They still will have some games to get their standing back up. That's just the way I feel about it. Of course, I'm the one who thinks we get the hell out of the ACC, but that's just me.
Well, so everything that you stated there, I completely agree with, but I don't want to agree with it, and this is what I mean. I'm a resume guy. Therefore, regardless of when the game's played, it's just another data point among the 12 or 13 data points. So to me, the resume should be evaluated as the resume. And whether Florida State and Clemson play week 1, week 7, the last week of the season, a la Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State loses, still goes to the playoff, that it should still be just judged as a resume, and the wins and the losses are the same regardless of when they're played. However, what you state is actual reality, that there are people out there and there are people on the playoff committee that judge the teams as they see the momentum of the season going. And therefore, if you lose in week 4 or week 5, and then you have a strong stretch run after that, they evaluate the team as such, as, okay, that is what it is, and it's on the record, but Florida State then won 6 straight after the field goal loss to Clemson. Therefore, they have proven themselves and bounced back. And so it is a real thing. There's no question about that. That's the way many people evaluate these teams.
Yeah, and it's weird, because I think that's what I was thinking of, Mark. Some voters in that room will sometimes forget what happens early on after week 3. Definitely if it's a week 2 game or something like that, and then boom, a team goes on a run and they get distracted by that, and they start putting them up in the polls, and it goes increased. I feel like I've seen that year after year after year. It just depends on the voters and that, and if they want to keep it that way before the extension of the playoffs. But I don't know. I don't know if that would deeply affect anything. If it's a game of that magnitude between Florida State and Clemson, it might. It would come down to the very end, but that's why you would have an ACC championship, though, which why I'm thinking would be Florida State versus Clemson going into this next season. I think that's the projection I think everybody has at the moment.
Touch a little bit on what Mark said, though. But if you yes, Michigan, Ohio State is the example of the I would say the that happens every year in the month of November. For the most part, and there are some exceptions to the rule. Florida and Georgia tend to be the first weekend of November. There'll be an occasional week like Notre Dame and Clemson this year playing the first week of November, and they did last year. But for the most part, the big games in most big conferences, most Power 5 conferences, put their bigger games end of September, beginning of October, mid-October, the latest, to give those teams the chance. The AC did this in 2014. Florida State and Clemson, I believe, played the third or fourth week of September for that very purpose. Off a national title. Clemson was a team that people thought had a potential. It was the first year of the playoff. They thought, okay, let's play this game early to give these teams a chance. Florida State ended up going to the season and making the inaugural playoff. So I'm just saying, I agree with what Champ Stein is saying. It should not matter. I agree. It should not matter. You know, if the game is played on November 11th or if the game is played on September 23rd. But the fact of the matter is it does matter. And teams are going to look. And with that schedule later on in the season, if you've got a Clemson in September, Miami in October, Florida in November, you have at least some game, some statement game each month, LSU the first week of the season. You've got a decent resume at that point to where if you're 11-1 or 11-2 come playoff time, you have an argument. I'm not saying you did, but you have an argument.
Back when it was a thing, meaning Texas, Oklahoma leave for the SEC, make that announcement, then the following summer, USC, UCLA to the Big Ten. When that was a thing, we were talking about all sorts of possibilities involving Florida State and other teams in the ACC. We addressed this many times, but we can do it right here. If you guys, of course, Florida State first and foremost. So if we don't want to miss anything with FSU, if there's anything that we need to get to, Logan, so just let us know. Keep us honest. But Kevin's asking, what are your thoughts about Florida State going to the Big Ten?
I can actually speak this firsthand because I spoke to somebody today involved with NBC Sports handling how their deal with signing the exact comment that was made. And I'm going to clean up the language that was used, was, and I quote, Miami effed it up for Florida State. Plan was in place all along. We talked about last offseason about what would be a great move as you bring in two teams from the West Coast, bring Miami and Florida State. The Big Ten was all set to bring in Florida State and Miami if they had good seasons. Florida State lived up to their end of the bargain. Miami screwed it by going 5-7. Now, the Big Ten is not exactly sure they can trust that Miami is going to improve. So that's the question right now is, do you take a gamble? Because it's obviously on paper, if you're going with just football, you would take Florida State and Clemson from the ACC. But the fact of the matter is Florida State and Miami are tied together. If Florida State leaves to the Big Ten, Miami is going to come along with them for various reasons. State of Florida, supremacy. You got to have that natural rivalry between the two teams. So that's the question is, does the Big Ten go out and take a gamble and go with Miami? Because right now, Florida State's on up. Miami is down. Do you take the gamble that Miami will have a bounce-back season in 2023, try to come in and say 2024 possibility? But yes, to answer Kevin's question, the Big Ten want Florida State. The Big Ten has made it clear they like the way Florida State is moving as an athletics program as a whole. They like the way Florida State is moving up academically. They like the fact that we are on track to become an AAU university. They do like that fact. The plan it was initially in place was a Florida State and Miami, and to bring two more teams from what is now the Pac-12. Whether that was Cal and Stanford, whether that was Oregon and Washington, whoever, that was not a known fact. But yes, to answer the question, Miami screwed it up for us. Another reason for us to hate Miami, there you go.
I think, well, just Miami. I was just going to mention real quick before Mark says something. I was going to mention, Miami's going to bring viewership, and I understand the wins thing. I think you can evaluate what they did this year, but the Rutgers, Northwestern.
Oh, yeah.
What else is in that conference? Miami is quadrupling by 1 million in viewership for them. So money-wise, I'm sure that would be very attractive for the Big Ten to go after Miami. They'll do their job on that part. But on the field, success is a different story.
What helps Miami's argument is the program. They've got a decent decent men's basketball team. Their baseball team is a decent team every single season. They're also with us on the trajectory of possibly becoming an AAU program. So that helps them as a case like that. And to answer your question about viewership, yes, 3 of the top 20 TV markets in the nation are all in the state of Florida. Florida State helps bring that in, and Miami solidifies it. We also help tap into the market. It also helps make it a nationwide brand. The fact of the matter is we need to have a natural rival. If we went to the SEC, we would have Florida. If we go to the Big Ten, we need somebody like Miami. So that's the question: is if you were the Big Ten, do you say, all right, we want Florida State, we have to take Miami, despite the fact they went 5-7 this season? That's why, if you look at it, it's imperative for Miami to show up this season. I'm not saying they need to go out and be 12-0, but Miami has to be much better this season.
If I'm running the Big Ten, I'm making decisions based on three things: money, football, and academics. And before anybody laughs at the academics portion of that, just understand that the money involved in the academic side of this is actually completely dwarfs the football money when we talk about academic endowments. So based on all the information I've gathered, and we've got a guy, his name's Tony Altimore, that comes on, and we had him on here, that breaks down the numbers and all of that. Florida State and Miami are attractive to the Big Ten academically. So they fit the mold of what the Big Ten is looking for there. Jason brings up a good point. The Big Ten has reached out to the West Coast, and they've grabbed the two biggest brands on the West Coast, USC and UCLA. They go to Florida, then they are truly, yes, a completely national brand. They already are, but they solidify that completely. The reason I take the gamble and go to Florida, and I take Florida State and Miami, even if Miami is a lackluster team in the Big Ten, even if they never turn the corner and they churn out 5-7 win seasons every year, and they're just another Illinois or Rutgers in the Big Ten, the recruiting. This is the only thing the Big Ten doesn't have. They don't have Florida recruiting. The Big Ten has all the money in the world. They've got all the media rights. They've got enormous football brands: Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC. They've got more people watching their games than any conference. SEC fans actually look at the TV ratings. It's close, but the Big Ten and the SEC are neck and neck in regards to, if you look at the top 5 to 10 games every week, they're SEC and Big Ten games. What they don't have, though, is players. They have to travel to get players. Now, of course, there are players in Ohio and there are players in Michigan, but there's not enough of them. And if they can establish 2 of their main schools in Florida, then they can recruit and not just fill up Florida State, Miami with players, but Michigan's going to come down, Penn State's even more so than they do now, and get more players and be able to sell those players on, join the Big Ten. We play Florida State, Miami every year, and you can have the best of both worlds.
And there's some like Ohio State, the best player from American Heritage, receiver Brandon Innes, went to Ohio State this year. So they do get occasionally, but there are two things to finish up, say, before you go. The Big Ten has to make it sexy because of the fact that the new contract, they continue their contract with Fox, and they sign on season with a new contract with CBS and NBC. If you can get Miami and Florida State in there, you get that game on NBC. You know, you may not get Michigan, Ohio State, because Fox will probably grab that one first still every single year. But you're going to get an Ohio State, Penn State. You're going to get a Michigan State. You're going to get a USC, Michigan, or, you know, a Nebraska, UCLA. You're going to get some decent games there, number one. Number two, I don't think we talk about it enough. The alumni bases in the state of Florida for Ohio State, for Michigan. You know, Logan talked a little bit about schools like Rutgers, schools like Indiana, schools like Maryland. If you've got 1 year, Florida State's hosting Miami, Michigan, and Penn State, and the next season is hosting Florida, Ohio State, and Michigan State, and then Miami's hosting Michigan 1 year, Ohio State the next year. Those are sellouts. Those schools are going to make the money. Money is going to roll in like crazy. And just to finish up with what you said, academically, we're talking about billions of dollars in money that is going to come into these schools if they join the Big Ten. And the one question you have to ask right now, I'll say this before I go, the Big Ten just lost their commissioner, Kevin Warren, who just took a job in the executive office of the Chicago Bears. Where did the ACC's commissioner come? Where did he come from? Look where Jim Phillips came from.
I don't know where he came from offhand.
I believe he came from Northwestern, if I'm correct, or at some point had some experience with Big Ten. If he goes to the Big Ten as their commissioner, do not be surprised if it happens sooner rather than later.
We'll see, but you also got to wonder with the SEC, is that going to be? Will they ever let that happen? Let them come down here to the Southeast and do that? That's the thing. That's where this is probably going to last longer than we might expect, because we were hearing things this last offseason, and during the season, it's gone quiet, and it's gone very quiet. And, Michael Alford has kind of spoken on a few things, and, he's made some hires behind the scenes that are literally made to go through these negotiations, and it's going to be a long process, but it's going to be SEC versus Big Ten. I think every FSU fan wants to get out of the ACC, but it's going to take a little while because this is a big brand. You look at the viewership that Florida State put on this year too, and one of the biggest bowl games that was watched outside the playoffs, and then all throughout the season, the numbers that they put up. The brand is very much here. The fan base is here, and a lot of people that love college football will watch Florida State. And now that it is uprising, it's just going to continue to be a negotiation battle, I think, between teams and Miami and Florida State. And then you're dealing with the conferences that are wanting them inside of their alignment.
Real quick, Phillips, 13 seasons as the athletic director at Northwestern before he came here. And just after what I said, yes, we do travel to BC, Pitt, and Syracuse. I agree with that. That being said, a game against Penn State, games against Michigan State, those are going to be on NBC, CBS, or Fox, versus games at Syracuse, which are on the ACC network. There is a huge difference from a TV aspect to being on a broadcast network versus being on a regional cable network or on the ACC network. It's a huge difference.
Absolutely. It's one of my favorite sites, folks. If you look up college football TV ratings, you go right to a site. I forget the name of it. They will show you every network game each week and the numbers that come in, all the way down to ESPNU, the Big Ten network, all those ACC network games. And just look at the TV ratings. That'll just open your eyes to who holds the power in the sport. It's the SEC and the Big Ten. All right. And of course, Florida State, fortunately for them, they're not going to get left out because they're one of the few not in those two conferences that have a enormous brand and appeal. So good stuff. Jason Parker, NBC6, Logan Robinson, Noel Game Day. Logan, you on tonight?
Yeah, we'll be on at 8 with Derek Ray, Florida State's general manager of personnel. Another one of those hires that Mike Norvell made off that big guy in the transfer portal, guy that takes care of all of that stuff. So interested to pick his brain tonight at 8 o'clock. So we'll be doing that in an hour. So
nice.
Looking forward to that. As always, appreciate you having me, Mark.
Jason, you know what I'm looking forward to here in the next few weeks? It's about that time of year as we get toward the end of January in winter conditioning that Logan's going to start rolling out some squat numbers, some bench press, some cleans.
We've got measurements. That were released today, and we've got jersey numbers that were also released today. But I'm saying we'll save that for the next show because we could have a whole hour of that by this time.
Do me a favor. Let me know when that show happens. Okay.
You're taking a break.
That'll be just having a week where work will
once a month break.
A work-related issue will come up or something.
Okay.
I love that.
Oh yeah,
where it all starts.
I had the tabs ready up here just in case. I had them ready, but we went into conference talk. But that's what keeps the viewers. We do like conference talk.
Jason, strength and conditioning. That's the core of the program. That's where it all starts.
It's where it begins, baby.
I'm sorry, I zoned out. What did you say? Sorry.
What's in that smoothie, King?
All right, folks. Appreciate you being here. About 130 on the line. Florida State Seminoles live. Get on back here next Wednesday at 6 Eastern. Make it on time, and you can watch what you missed. You want to hear Jason off the top blasting Miami and Clemson people. So, the video is going to post here in the next few seconds. Get on back and watch what you missed right here at the Voice of College Football. You guys make this work, so we appreciate you, Jason. Logan, appreciate it, man. We'll see you all next week.